and good evening. It's November 25th, 2025, and we're continuing our discussion collection in our Outside the Class series. This series, from the Bible Project, it covers the entire TaNaK, also known as the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. The source videos for those are available for your review on TheDustyFeet.com in the Outside the Class section. The intent of Outside the Class, if you'd listen to that in-class lecture first, those short little overview videos, and these we're going to try to keep to about 15 minutes. I want to make them easy to catch up on. So we are on a quest, scroll by scroll, book by book, a journey through this collection, maybe with a fun and different twist. Our hope with the Dusty Feet is to foster discussion and to help build and support communities. If you're not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. TheDustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Substack. Link is in the description below. It's designed around the written and spoken text. It's a place to connect to ourselves and others. 3. Facebook at The Dusty Feet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. 4. And as always, you're welcome to send an email to bob@thedustyfeet.com. These places, they will be moderated and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on The Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. Oh, and before we forget, if you find these kinds of podcasts useful, it's when you click that subscribe button. The reminders are just there to help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, that is when you click that like button, because that is how YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. So in this series, we're going to cover the entire TaNaK, right? The Old Testament. But we want to do it in the original order of the Hebrew Scriptures, right? And we need to remember also that the videos we're going to discuss are always just the tip of an iceberg. They are part of a learning series that I highly recommend. And all of them can be found on the Bible Project's website. Yeah? Because we're going to ask many questions about all kinds of things. Answers? That's what we're going to see. So Samuel, second scroll. This is part 2. So Saul's dead. And of course, the next step for the royal coronation of King David, right? That's the story, right? What I think sometimes, and it's just something that I think that maybe we unintentionally, things we put on Scripture, it's the question of the expectation of a story. Yeah. And of course, we always remember that these are real people, right? They're not characters in a story. And sometimes you read the stories, and I think we're not really embracing the ability to, as I often like to say, put on their sandals. Yeah. These are not fictitious people like the books, like the Harry Potter series, right? These are actual people. So sometimes when we think of the stories, why would we behaving any differently than we think they are? Or worse, what would we do if we think we're them? Yeah? Do we really expect the people in these stories we read in our scriptures, as wrapped on our scrolls, to act any differently than we would? I know we often put them on pedestals. We call them a patriarch of the faith, and yet I'm not sure we should. At least I think it's worth pausing to think about. But, there's a prayer that's often said, and in the line, there's a repetitive part that says, may you grow up to be like. And it mentions some of the patriarchs and the matriarchs of our biblical narrative, and yet I sit back, I look at the stories, and I go, yeah, the result had them as major participants in the biblical narrative, at least the ones we do get to see, right? It does make you wonder about all the other people that were major participants in the Believers of Yahweh group that never did make scripture. Yeah, we never saw them. Because I highly doubt these were the only ones that we would ever want to be a greater part of the biblical picture of God's will on earth. We just don't hear about those folks. But when I pause and I look at these people and I go, I'm not sure my life should emulate that, which is challenging because the man we're going to talk about, David, is a man after God's own heart, right? But we've already seen his response to various situations, various opportunities, various conditions. We see his responses, and there's good ones, and there's not so good. Then I remember he's just a man. He's human like us. And then I think sometimes I get asked that question, are we ever called to actually act like somebody? I mean, oftentimes we're still talking about wanting to be like Jesus. That's a very good thought. And I think that so many other questions, there's so many other questions that would be the closest thing that we'd have to discuss the rest of these people. Because I'm not sure we're supposed to duplicate. I think maybe we're just meant to maybe glean the best from, learn life lessons from. Back to our story. So, the coronation, right? Well, it really doesn't play out like that. Right? So let's take a peek. Chapter 2, starting verse 1. After this, David inquired of Yahweh, shall I go up to any of the cities in Judah? And Yahweh said to him, go up. And David said to him, which shall I go up? And he said, to Hebron. So David went up there, along with his 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. And David brought up the men who were with him, every one with his household, and they settled in the towns of Hebron. Then the people of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. When they told David, it was the people of Jabesh Gilead who buried Saul. David sent messengers to the people of Jabesh Gilead and said to them, may you be blessed by Yahweh, because you showed you this loyalty to Saul, your Lord, and you buried him. Now may Yahweh show his steadfast love and faithfulness to you, and I too will reward you because you have done this thing. Therefore, let your hands be strong and valiant, for Saul your Lord is dead, and the house of Judah has anointed me king over them. So we need to pay attention to the terminology, right? The words used, and I like that. David is king over Judah, the tribe of Judah, and the little people attached to Judah, yeah. But this is not the coronation over all of Israel. Because when we get to the next section, I think we're going to see an interesting dynamic at play there. But David is king of Judah. But he's from the tribe of Benjamin. Remember? Him is a lowly Benjamite, right? David is now Judah. And he's now the king of Judah. He's not king over Israel, as in all of Israel. So to me, this is just one of those real indicators that this group of tribes, they call themselves Israel, these 12 tribes, that there were fractures very, very early, and it never really did reach a clean grouping. We get to a point where they're all united eventually, but the cracks are here. We've seen them mentioned before, which is here. It's pretty straightforward. So chapter 2, we're going to get verse 8. But Abner, son of Ner, right, the commander of Saul's army, had taken Ishbaal, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and he made him king over Gilead, the Asherites, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, and all Israel. Ishbaal, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel. He reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. The time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. So what I enjoy in Scripture, sometimes it tells us things, and I would think the original audience would probably be understanding that better than we do. Because I think sometimes we think the opposite. I think the original people, they had a better chance of understanding things maybe a little better than we do now. But we get to this point where the nation's split. All the rest are under the son of Saul. So it seems that maybe God wasn't so tidy in making sure that all the lineage of Saul had been done away with. God really didn't get the total job done, yeah? It's a bit messy. So what follows is a battle. It's called the Battle of Gibeon, right? And it's really an interesting battle because it's not the way we would conduct war today, right? It appears to have been very much the way things were approached during that time in their lives. But there's a point where the two leaders, they get together and they say, hey, let our young men fight it out. So they fight it out. They're killing each other. I mean, then they start chasing each other. And then Abner, well, he runs away. And he's running away from the three sons of Zeruiah. In that, they actually end up letting Abner go. They let him run back to their town, right, Mahanaim. But after that skirmish, that group, they got back together. They did a head count. David, he lost 19 of his soldiers. Abner, he lost 360. Not good. But one of the brothers of the sons of Zeruiah, right, Ashael, he had fallen. And they wanted to honor him. So they brought him up to the tomb of his father, which is in Bethlehem, as if we don't get enough red string connections with David and Benjamin and Judah and Bethlehem. These stories and these locations and these connections, they echo, they ripple, they connect all over Scripture. But after that, a prolonged battle ensues for years. I mean, for years. Because right after they say that's been going on a while, David's house is getting stronger. The house of Saul is getting weaker. That's what's mentioned. And then David's children are born. Right? Chapter 3, verse 2. Sons were born to David at Hebron. His first son was Amnon of Anoim of Jezreel. Right? His second was Chileab of Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. The third was Absalom, son of Maacah, the daughter of King Talmai of Geshur. The fourth was Adonijah, the son of Haggith, and the fifth was Shephatiah of Abital. And the sixth was Ithream of David's wife Elga. These were born to David in Hebron. So quick wife count. There's 6 here. Plus, he's still married to Saul's daughter, Michal. So that's 7 wives. And there's 6 sons. Keeping tabs. But during this battle time, Abner, remember, he was the king's guard, right, that David had called out, made a fool of. Abner does not really like David at all. He's also getting a little big for his britches during this war. The phrase that Scripture uses, interesting, it says, Abner was making himself strong in the house of Israel. So next week, when we get to the messy story of the end, or shall we say just the beginning of the next significant phase, still it's far from clean. It's, again, very messy. And again, we have this strange loyalty of David that I know for me, and only based on what we see in stories. Remember, that's just snippets of real life over decades. But there's points that David takes that I don't understand. It's the truth. And we're going to look into it next week and see what you think. So, thanks for being with us tonight on another Outside the Class with the second scroll of Samuel on the Dusty Feet.